Now, I'll never forget sitting in a theater and watching the Clone Wars movie for the first time and thinking to myself, what is this? Why are they giving Anakin a Padawan? How does this make any sense or make his story better? And why does she have to be so unlikable and so annoying? Even Anakin's annoyed by her and only takes her on as a Padawan because he apparently sees a little bit of himself in her. And when the movie was over, I was left wondering how good the upcoming series could possibly be with Ahsoka featured in it. I mean, I initially disliked her so much that the only thing I could take solace in was the fact that she wasn't in Revenge of the Sith, which meant something not so good likely had to happen to her along the way. Or maybe during that film, though off-screen during Order 66, or better yet, soon after when Vader hunted her down. In other words, I was very much looking forward to one day maybe seeing Darth Sky Guy cut down Snips with a lightsaber. However, something happened somewhere along the way while watching the series. When and how it exactly did would be difficult to explain or even pinpoint, considering I didn't truly realize it until after the fact. Or maybe I should say I didn't truly realize it until the bitter end of the final episode of the initial 5-season run of the Clone Wars on Cartoon Network, in the episode titled The Wrong Jedi, where at the end of it, Ahsoka walks away from the Jedi Order. And though, yes, I had certainly stopped disliking and wishing death upon Ahsoka at the hands of Vader long before this episode, and if I had to guess, it was probably the Padawan Lost episodes in Season 3 that were the real turning point for her in my mind, or when I started to realize it. But anyway, it wasn't until she was literally walking away that I realized that not only did I really like this character, but that she had become one of my favorites across all of Star Wars. That hers was a coming-of-age story that pretty much anyone and everyone out there can and did relate to, as she went from annoying young brat at the start, to put it bluntly, to a responsible young woman and Jedi who had learned from not only her many mistakes along the way, but from her initially rather reluctant master. And that he, Anakin, had come to rely and depend on her as well. That somewhere along the way they had evolved from just a master and apprentice to something more akin to a team or even a family. And so after she had grown on me over the years, this ending of her walking away was all perfectly fitting in a way because it meant I could very much feel or share in Anakin's pain and loss. This episode was, in so many ways, the perfect example or reminder of one of the hardest lessons in life to learn, and one that cannot be fully understood until it happens to you, which it inevitably will to all of us one day. And that lesson is that you don't really know what you have until it's gone. You can never fully appreciate something until you lose it or have to live without it, which applied both to Anakin in story losing Ahsoka, and to us outside of it not only losing Ahsoka as well, but losing the Clone Wars series in general, keeping in mind once again that once upon a time this was the final episode of the series. And though, yeah, I had definitely realized how great the show was or had become after a somewhat rough first couple seasons and a rough first movie, I didn't realize how much I was going to miss it until it was over. But there was yet another fascinating aspect to this episode, one that digs into the greatest, shall we say, challenge or dilemma or question when it comes to the Jedi, that being attachments and how Jedi are supposed to forsake them, or if maybe they should even be allowed to have them. Which, talking about forsaking them, was part of the reason Yoda decided to make Ahsoka Anakin's Padawan in the first place, to teach him a lesson about learning to let go, knowing that of course one day Ahsoka would become a full-on Jedi Knight and leave Anakin's side, and that Anakin would have to learn how to accept that. But the irony of this episode, of the whole story arc really, was that if Anakin had truly embraced this lesson of no attachments, if he had learned what Yoda wanted him to learn and detached his personal feelings from this matter entirely, he would have or should have accepted the Council's decision to expel Ahsoka from the Jedi Order and to let her stand trial, her fate then decided by the Senate, who were almost certainly going to find her guilty and probably put her to death for treason against the Republic. But if Anakin had done that, acted as a Jedi should, and accepted all of this, Ahsoka, an innocent young woman, would have suffered and paid the price. Abiding by the Jedi Code, not letting personal feelings get in the way would have, you can certainly argue here, been the wrong approach. Instead, though, Anakin did let his attachment to Ahsoka dictate his actions, and he searched relentlessly for the truth and eventually found it. He refused to give up mainly for personal reasons, or because he personally cared about Ahsoka, which then eventually led him to Barriss Offee, the mastermind behind the whole thing, She was the one who had framed Ahsoka for her crimes. And what's truly brilliant about this episode is that when Anakin confronts her, when he confronts Barriss, we begin to see the problem with Jedi and attachments, even though, again, attachments is what leads him to save Ahsoka or prove her innocent in the first place. Because Anakin's clearly very angry at Barriss, right? As he maybe should or would be, naturally, considering what she's done. Anyone would be angry when confronting someone who had set up and almost got their friend or loved one killed. But had Barriss been more of a, shall we say, match for Anakin, he may have been tempted to embrace that anger more so than he did against her. He may have been tempted to tap into the dark side in order to defeat her, to get vengeance for the one he cared about, to get vengeance for Ahsoka. This then ties in beautifully into what Vader said to Luke at one point in The Empire Strikes Back.
Now, release your anger. Only your hatred can destroy me.
As well as what Yoda said to him earlier in that same movie.
Vader, is the dark side stronger?
No. But easier, more seductive.
Basically, the idea of the dark side is that it's easy to get mad and to solve your problems with anger, because in Star Wars, to simplify it a bit, anger gives you strength with the dark side. And when you do that, when you solve your problems easily by getting mad, it's seductive to, well, solve all your problems that same way, to do it the quick and easy way and keep giving into your anger until you lose yourself to it. And so again, if Barriss had been a tougher challenge for Anakin, he may have been tempted to give into his anger more so than he already did to defeat her. But even though he didn't or didn't have to, it does show that he was likely willing to do whatever it takes for those he cares about. This whole episode, again, the final episode, Once Upon a Time, shows that Anakin didn't learn what Yoda wanted him way back in that original Clone Wars movie when Ahsoka was assigned as his Padawan. He hasn't learned the lesson of letting go and has actually had the opposite message reinforced here, that embracing attachments and doing what you must for those you care about not only leads to the best of results for him or for Anakin, but leads to the right and just results in general, which in this case was Ahsoka being proven innocent and spared being put to death for treason. And so shortly after this in story, in Revenge of the Sith, when Anakin is afraid to lose Padme and Yoda is telling him to let go of everything he's afraid to lose, of course he's not going to listen to him. Of course he's going to again embrace his attachments and pursue what he feels is right, figuring it will lead to the best of results once again, even though in that instance everyone ends up suffering. And so what I absolutely love about this episode, why it's arguably the best in the entire series, is not only do we perfectly relate with Anakin and everything he does here and goes through, not only do we understand his pain and anger, but it perfectly encapsulates not only how difficult it must be to be a Jedi, but it also showcases the great Jedi dilemma or contradiction. It's somehow both an argument for and against Jedi being allowed attachments, just like the whole Star Wars saga or the first 6 episodes is when you really stop and think about it. Because yes, Anakin refusing to let go of Padme, his attachments in that case, is what leads the galaxy to darkness. But later on, in Return of the Jedi, Luke refusing to give up on his father, refusing to give up on Anakin, and doing what he must to destroy him, as Yoda and Obi-Wan wanted him to do, is then what ends up saving the galaxy. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you think about this episode, or what you think about Jedi and attachments. Whatever the case may be, leave your comments below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.